Goodfellas tells the story of Henry Hill, played by Ray Liotta, who drops out of school and joins a mob who raises him in a gangster life. There's the main man, Jimmy, played by Robert De Niro, the awesome Tommy DeVito, played by Joe Pesci, Paulie, played by Paul Sorvino. We see many a death as the film shows Henry aging and falling for a woman named Karen, played by Lorraine Bracco. They have many kids together as the relationship is constantly tested as he leads a double life whilst having an affair, becoming addicted to drugs, but when she finds out she helps him in his ways, goes to prison, out of prison, goes to prison, and finally leaves that life behind him.
I'm ashamed now.
Though based on a true story, Nicholas Pileggi's book Wise Guy was the inspiration. Scorsese was on set of Color of Money in 1986 when he read it, but he had no interest in making another mob film. He did however have some second thoughts reading the book and thinking it was the most honest portrayal of gangsters that he had ever read. He knew exactly what style to go with. To begin Goodfellas like a gunshot and have it get faster from there, almost like a 2.5 hour trailer. I think it's the only way you can really sense the exhilaration of the lifestyle and get a sense of why a lot of people are attracted to it. The director allegedly called up the author and said, "I've been waiting for this book my entire life." Pileggi then replied, "I've been waiting for this phone call my entire life."
It's a celebration, fellas.
Scorsese and Pileggi worked together on the screenplay and it took 12 drafts to come to a script that they actually felt was right. They decided which sections they liked and put them together like building blocks. Scorsese had to persuade Pileggi to not follow a traditional narrative structure. He wanted to take the film and deal with it episode by episode but start in the middle and move backwards and forwards. He wanted to compact scenes and if he kept them short, the impact after an hour and a half or so would be terrific. They changed the title from Wise Guys to Goodfellas to separate themselves from the 1986 film and the TV series that was going on at the time. John Malkovich was considered for the role of Jimmy and it was even offered to Al Pacino, who turned it down, worrying that it'd be typecast. But yet, that exact same year, he'd go on to star in Dick Tracy and he'd be even more typecast. Robert De Niro was approached and quickly accepted, taking his role so seriously, he would constantly phone up the real-life Henry to ask really detailed questions like how the real Jimmy held his cigarette or even poured his ketchup. Sean Penn was considered for the part of Henry and Alec Baldwin even auditioned before it went to Ray Liotta. He would constantly listen to FBI audio tapes so he could sound as precise as his real-life counterpart as possible. The real Henry was paid $480,000 for the film and ended up loving the final result. For $480,000, I'd love barbed wire up my ass!
Are you nuts? Are you fucking nuts? What's your problem?
Scorsese did, however, forbid Liotta to meet the real Henry because it was the first time he had ever directed him and he didn't want his actor being influenced by somebody else. Sadly, his mother actually passed away during production, but he powered through and used it as motivation for his more angry and intense sequences. Ellen Barkin was considered for the role of Karen before Lorraine Bracco got it. She actually refused to meet the real Karen, thinking it would be better if the creation of the character came from herself instead. Frank Vincent wanted to play Paulie, but Scorsese convinced him to play Billy. William Peterson was offered an unknown part in the film but turned it down, and Marlon Brando himself even tried his best to persuade the director to not make this movie. I wanted lots of movement and I wanted it to be throughout the whole picture, and I wanted the style to kind of break down by the end so that by Henry's last day as a wise guy, it's as if the whole picture would be out of control. Give the impression he's just going to spin off the edge and fly out. He took inspirations from 1962's Jules and Jim and often used freeze frames throughout the film. He wanted images to stop because a point was being reached in Henry's life.
This was really a touchy thing.
Many lines were ad-libbed as Scorsese allowed his actors to improvise and kept in his favourite ones. The famous exchange where Pesci asks why he's so funny was entirely improvised by him, as was the dinner with his mum, played by Scorsese's real-life mother. In the first screening, amazingly, 40 people walked out within the first 10 minutes.
If only they knew.
What's the world coming to?
Joe Pesci actually holds the record for the 6th shortest Academy Award acceptance speech in history.
Oh, it's my privilege, thank you.
He claimed he didn't say much because he genuinely had absolutely no hope whatsoever of actually winning.
Who could believe it?
In fact, Joe Pesci's real-life mother saw the movie and said to her son, "I really liked it, but did you really have to curse so much?"
Get the fuck out of here!
The real Henry claimed Pesci was 99% accurate to the real-life guy, with the only difference being the real dude was actually really built. Oh, and in the film they said it was shot in the face so his mother can't have an open casket funeral, but in real life his body was never recovered. They weren't kidding when they said the film would start off fast. This is the very first scene.
No bullshit in here.
As much as I love The Godfather, it slowed down a bit too much in the third act, whereas this film constantly kept going and the story was told so well. Robert De Niro was fantastic as always.
I thought you'd be mad.
Man, I'm not mad at you. I'm proud of you. You took your first place like a man, and you learned the 2 greatest things in life.
Well,
Look at me. Never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut.
Well, what can I say about Joe Pesci? He definitely deserved that Oscar.
What the fuck are you looking at?
But I actually think Ray Liotta outshines them both completely. He starts off playing it cool but subtle. He finds out some dude tried it on with his girl and just his subtle facial expression shows his anger enough. Now this is a time when music wasn't needed and he pummels the dude. You can really feel his emotion.
Although the emotion is slightly ruined by this crap acting.
Don't shoot.
Only slightly.
Are you gonna keep your mouth shut or what?
The third act, his final day as a wise guy, it is actually riveting stuff. I was on the edge of my seat throughout the entire sequence. It's constantly moving and his acting is incredible with a great additional job from the makeup team. Ray Liotta had actually never been under the influence before, which makes his acting performance that more impressive. Now he'd save that stuff for Vice City.
There goes my careful planning blown to shit. Thanks to you.
The violence all looks so real and so nasty. They actually had to remove 10 frames of blood to approve an R rating from the MPAA. The effects are great and so's the direction. Even simple conversations are shot rapidly, never stopping, and it adds to the tone set by the rest of the film. There's long sequences that are so impressive for its time, and this one was actually done by accident. The filmmakers weren't given permission to enter the building the short way around, so Scorsese had to improvise. This took 8 attempts, but it looks incredible.
Too good to be true.
The music is also amazing and one of the best soundtracks I've heard for a while. The chemistry between Liotta and Lorraine is great, backed up by 2 incredible and intense acting performances that you can truly believe is real. You really feel their strength as a couple during the hardships, despite their differences, and the realism is definitely there. It's 2.5 hours long, but it really does fly by, never dragging at all.
That's how fast it takes for a guy to get whacked.
This film was the inspiration for the hit show The Sopranos, and in 2012, a TV series of Goodfellas was even greenlit. It never happened. I also gotta mention this jackass. Yeah, he's pretty much famous now as being an extra who ruins an entire scene. Throughout this whole exchange, the guy just cannot look natural to save his life. He's constantly looking over at the main actors, trying to avoid looking at the camera, and once you notice it, you just can't stop looking and it distracts you from the rest of the scene, which is a shame because it's awesome otherwise.
Goodfellas is a masterpiece in my mind, and I feel like it set the standard for mob films to come even more than Godfather already did. And I'd highly recommend that you check it out, if you haven't already for some reason.